Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody here to the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of Smith Vocational Agricultural High School. Today is Thursday, December 17th. May I ask for a call?
Mr. Kaling.
Present.
Mr. Quadro.
Present.
Dr. Spencer Robinson. Here. Dr. Bonner.
Present.
Mayor Shara.
May we all stand in the face of flag for the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The mission of the Vocational and Agricultural High School is to provide students with an education that equips them to be professional adults with a high level of expertise, knowledge, and competence in their field, creative and impactful members of their chosen vocations and their communities, and effective communicators who value diversity of thought, experience, and cultural backgrounds.
Any participation by the public this evening? Thank you. Participation by the trustees?
I have a collaborative for educational services update tonight. I'm sorry to report that CES realized an approximately $2 million deficit in fiscal year '24. Key factors contributing to the deficit were end-of-year accounting adjustments, reduced revenue, and some operational challenges. However, critical steps have been taken to ensure long-term financial stability, including budget adjustments, expenditure controls, advocacy and engagement, and discussions with DESE to address the adverse impact of the new restricted indirect rate calculation, which is shockingly low, like 2.7% or something. Additionally, the CES cabinet is conducting a series of financial planning meetings to refine strategies for fiscal year '25 and beyond, and a comprehensive financial stability plan will be presented at the January 29th board meeting, so I'll report on that. I'm pleased to share a notification that we all received from MASC President-elect Jason Frazier regarding the Social Security Fairness Act, which was passed by the House of Representatives on November 12th by a vote of 327 to 75. This has special importance to employees like our vocational instructors, vocational teachers, who join the public sector after starting their careers in the private sector. They most likely will not reach their maximum in the state pension system, the MTRS, and they will also have their federal Social Security benefits greatly reduced due to the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset. The Social Security Fairness Act now moves to the Senate, and I encourage supporters to contact Senators Markey and Warren to tell them about our dedicated employees who would be helped by the passage of this bill.
Yes, I attended the Alumni Association meeting, I believe last week. Representative is here, Mary. Hi, how are you tonight?
Thank you.
And there seemed to getting a lot of interest in trying to put together a dinner in April, hopefully. And now we're getting it out on Zoom. Hopefully we get more participation. And that's it for now.
Thank you. Do we have a special event tonight?
We do. We have a special guest with us this evening, Mr. Nathan Lytle. I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Nathan Lytle on the phone a number of weeks in the past. And he told me his story, and I'm proud to say that I was able to, with the help of his daughter Lori, confirm many of the details. She was acting behind your back, sir. So we were able to confirm Mr. Lytle's attendance at Smith Vocational as a student who was drafted and bravely served in the Navy. And we are proud this evening, after you approved in November, the diploma for Mr. Nathan Lytle. So
Really?
we would like you to please come up, sir.
Congratulations very much. What's your name?
I'm Andy Lincolnhofer, superintendent.
The superintendent.
Yes.
Did you know Charlie Kilpatrick? Used to teach
Okay.
geography, history. And Mr. Reed and Mr. Peck ran the machine shop.
Right.
Mr. Reed was out on the floor with the machine, and Mr. Peck used to teach. Related math for the machine shop. And I loved the school, but I never.
You have your
I'm
cap.
Mr. Kaling, I'm chairman of the board of trustees for the school, and I attended here as well.
Okay,
And,
do you remember Charlie Kilpatrick?
I know the names, I did, had the opportunity to know, sir.
Oh, Mr. Reed and Mr. Peck.
This is Petra.
Mr. Peck.
Yeah.
Here's your cap. Here's your diploma. It's official. Congratulations.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Can we do a picture? Can I get it?
Sure.
Yeah, put the cap on. Make sure the tassel's on the correct side.
Which way is this going?
Over the left, over the heart.
This way?
And this goes over here, right?
Over to the,
Dead? Now
Right,
it's
to the
got
heart.
it.
As many times as we do
to
this.
the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like an arm.
Did you know Ernie Heon?
There we go.
Like I said, I know the name, didn't know.
He lives in Leeds.
Okay.
Okay, you're gonna be in the middle. You're the important one.
That's right.
Hold your diploma.
Excellent.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you
Great,
very much.
thank you, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
It's nice that you did that.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
I wasn't the
Thank
Air
you,
Force.
everybody,
the
for your
name, I
time.
thought you said the Air Force. All right, Air Force, I apologize. Let the record show, let the record show.
I was a crew chief on the B-47 until I phased them out. And then they sent me to see the third,
Yeah.
43rd Troop Air Squadron.
Thank you very much. We're gonna let them do the rest of their meeting now.
Wait, no, I said we go home.
Now you gotta get your graduation.
I can't say.
What year did you make that?
Oh, probably 1955. 55. What's your last name? Shavonsky. Did you know any of the Hathaway girls who went to school here? No.
1955.
About 1955. In 1956, I was already in the Army National Guard, the 104th Infantry Regiment, and I was in heavy weapons. Yankee Division. It's all force.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much again, all of you.
Together.
God bless all of you. My goodness, I was so
As well.
Okay, let's just-
Can I ask you your name?
John Bobala.
What?
John Bobala, B-O-B-A-L-A.
John Bobal.
Yeah, they're here for the rest of the meeting.
Anybody here around 85 years old?
No?
I'm 81.
No cigar.
No cigar?
81's the closest.
81? I'm gonna be 86 here in Washington, so.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
So we're gonna move on to horticulture building update, right?
Thank you. I don't know how I follow that, but
Yeah,
that
right.
was truly awesome to see. So last time I was before you, I was talking about unsuitable materials, change orders, delays, schedule impacts. I'm glad to tell you today that we're not dealing with the same issues. We've been able to get through the unsuitable materials. We haven't seen any more additional change orders in large volumes as we had in that site issue. And concrete's been poured, so we really dodged a bullet with that. We had some very interesting weather come in and created some challenges, and we were able to pour that last Thursday. If we missed that date, it's possible we've been a month or so out from there trying to catch weather again. So we are, I wouldn't say we're back on schedule to where we originally were, but we're at a place where we can now improve on schedule now. This critical work is done, framing is starting, so as we start working on that, we will try to improve the schedule and try to get us back to a May, June turnover if possible. And I'll continue to update the group as we move forward. But what's happening at the moment on the site is, as the concrete is curing currently the slab, we're starting to do structural steel. So you'll start to see cranes up there today. That structural steel will be set by tomorrow, and then the exterior walls will begin. That will run for approximately 8 weeks, so there'll be a lot of framing going on. I'm hoping by the next meeting I'll have a time-lapse video that I can share that will kind of bring us up to speed to where we are today, and that will obviously continue throughout the project. That'll give you some idea of where we are. The roof trusses are being delivered this week, which comprises the roof, and the next step is, once we start laying all of this interior walls and MEP interior work, mechanicals, electrical, and plumbing will begin. We were hoping that we'll be closed in somewhere by the month of February where it's weather tight. And from there, we'll be able to start doing the interior work and really start to see if there are schedule opportunities to increase and get back to where we were. The budget at the moment is holding very, very well. We've had some fortunate credits that have come back to us through change orders. So where last month, the last time we were lower, we were like 98,000 left. We're currently have 110,000, almost 111 in contingency. So that will definitely continue to go throughout the project and may change. But right now, we're holding in a pretty decent contingency left for unknowns. Right now, the schedule still is contractually to be complete by July 23rd. But again, as that increases, we will change order back if possible to reduce the delay in the turnover. I mean, that's really the heart of what's happened in the last 3 months. Trustees have any questions or anything you'd like to ask about what's happening or what's going to happen?
From what I was seeing, the communication's gotten a lot better, and we're getting the word to us. Andy he's got in his contract, he's got that clerk of the works part that got snuck in there that he didn't know about, but he's doing a good job with you guys to keep us informed, and we appreciate the effort that has come in with the inclement weather and the things that you had to deal with to get it done. And I just want to thank you and your team and everybody else that makes it happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know that we were hoping to get ahead a little bit, and then Mother Nature didn't cooperate with us, not on our side with that. And so I'm hearing you say we're back on the original timeline, so we haven't lost time necessarily.
Well, the original timeline currently is July, which is later, so that's what I'm trying to improve upon. So we're trying to get back to a closer to a May or June turnover, allowing the school more time to get into the building, move in, and exercise the building a bit. So that will continue to be updated, and when they become enclosed, that's where those schedule things will start to really pick up as they can enclose the building. Things pick up, and they'll be able to create opportunities to maybe improve the schedule.
Awesome. And then another question I have is, so in the project budget overview where it's almost $113,000 in change orders or credits approved to date, and the contingency balance is 110,558. That's for the rest of the project.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
And how do we feel about that amount? Does that feel like does it feel like it might?
As a project manager, I would always like more, but it's a responsible amount of money to have. We started off with 10%, that was acceptable. We ended up with 7.5%, which was an agreed upon number. And currently, anything in the ground really has a price tag to it. Once you're out of the ground and you start building vertically, a lot of those change order risks start to really slow down, where we're talking about $1,000 change order, not $100,000 change. So as long as that's managed and monthly, we look at it critically. If that started to reduce, we certainly would have a discussion with Andy and with the Board of Trustees about ways of improving that. But at this point today, without a crystal ball, we're
That's good to know, and I appreciate understanding the distinction between those kinds of costs in the ground and above ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Perfect, thank you. Joe, student representative?
Yes, I thought we lost Dom, but he was down the hall trying to figure out where we were, so we were able to remedy it. So I will turn it over to Dom.
Alright, so I don't really have much to report on, but I can say this week we're doing Spirit Week, and I can talk a little bit about the basketball team. So we took a tough loss versus Hampshire, so we lost. And then yesterday we played St. Mary's, and that's our first league game, so now we're 1-1. Our next game's Thursday. It's an away game, so we're doing good this week.
So I go, okay. At this time, I have a motion, a second, to approve the minutes of the November 19th, 2025 Board of Trustees meeting.
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's good, Spotlight.
I'd like to introduce Ms. Flores, our president, for a short presentation.
Hello everyone, I'm Elizabeth Flores. I'm the math department head. I worked here for 12 years, 1 year longer than Andy and Joe. I hired Andy, I'm gonna tell you that right now. I was on his hiring committee, wasn't I? Alright, so I'm just gonna highlight just a little bit about what we do in the math department. So as you guys know, our kids are in academics for 90 days, right? So every other week. But before they go to shop in 9th and 10th grade, they take a math class. And this used to be to prepare for MCAS so that our kids had a fair advantage against any other school. They were taking math 180 days of the year, and they weren't, caught off at 90. So that happens in 9th and 10th grade. I know things have changed with the MCAS. We've talked about keeping it. I know we talked about how we don't want, if our kids don't do math every week, they're just going to forget stuff. So I think keeping that class would be awesome just to have them practicing their math skills. Let's see what else we got. Yeah. Anybody have questions on that class or anything? I just put these up here just because a lot of people don't know. So I did the last 2 years. Last year, we had a 94% pass rate, meaning the kids don't have to take it anymore. They met the criteria, whether it's, proficient or needs improvement. And then the year before that, we had a 97.3%. So, I think those numbers are awesome. For kids that didn't pass, we do a lot of different things. We had an MCAS remediation where, at least in the math department, we do it for all the departments, but all the kids that didn't pass, they would get pulled out of their shops, or last year they came after school. And we would remediate them, we would go through their tests, see what they didn't do well on, and then a teacher would work with them on the skills that they were, struggling with. The department, we go through, we get the results of every kid's MCAS. So we would go through and see like what the most missed questions were, and go through that data. And then we would, every summer we meet and we kind of update those period 1 math classes I was telling you about. If one year the kids struggled on something they didn't, then, the year before we would just like adjust and put a lesson in on that. And then if a student is on an AEP, they would have to take the 4th year of math. Like right now, a graduation requirement is that they only need 3, all right? So that's what we would do for the kids that didn't pass. So we'll have to see what happens going forward. In terms of data, we get so much data. So we have a thing called EduElastic. We use it, it's online. Title I pays for it. We used to really use it to prepare for MCAS. It kind of mimicked the MCAS, but it's really quick. It grades it, it's like the one thing that we have in our department that we don't personally grade. It's just the computer that grades it. And it's aligned with all the standards and everything. We all across the board, so like there might be there's 2 different teachers that teach algebra. And we have common end of the trimester assessment. So like me and there's another teacher named Miss McNamee who also teaches algebra. We give the same end of year finals and then we give the same end of trimester tests. And so we do that across the board. We have, the trimester grades give us data. The 9th graders take a placement test, and I'll talk about that in a minute because it's on the next slide. And then we have AP exams, which that's also complicated. So we offer a class in senior year. It doesn't count towards graduation as a math requirement. So if a kid does need 4 years of math, they would have to take this in addition to another math class. The state doesn't count it, even though I think it's the most important class we teach. So it's financial literacy. It teaches them, things they need for the real world. How to budget, like credit scores. They were doing a credit score app today in class. They talk about insurance, investing. They do a whole unit on how to do your taxes, right? I got out of high school and I had no idea. My mom told me how to do my taxes. So they do that. They learn how to take out car loans, house loans, they look at their credit scores and then they take that into what % of a loan they can get. And then they find a house and then they look at how much money the house costs versus, how much they're really paying for that house. What a 15-year looks like compared to a 30-year. And then insurance claims, because this is they need to see, they get in some accidents and how that's going to affect, their insurance money. So this is just, I think it's the best class that we teach. So I just wanted to put up here what classes we offer. So they're broken up by grade level. So when our freshmen come in, they take a pre-test. And I taught for the 2 years. And now they take it before, they have to come in over the summer. So we offer 3 different sessions over the summer. One's in the morning, one's in the evening, and then one's on a weekend. And if they can't get here over the summer, we have a freshman orientation day, and they just have to stay a little bit later to take that test. So prior to freshman orientation, the past 2 years, we've had between 100 and 120 kids already take that test. And so we can then use that data to place them in the correct math class. It used to be rough because we were trying to give that pre-test on day 1, and we would have so many kids we would need to switch just because in guidance, they get, some school districts literally recommend all the kids for the same class, no matter if they're awesome at math or they really struggle. And we would find that out, and then guidance was doing so many class changes, and it really disrupted their schedule. A lot of freshmen didn't want to move their schedules because they're nervous. They're here, they just went through freshman orientation, they know where their classes are, and they can't see the bigger picture of needing to change their class. So we had so many class changes from 9th to 10th grade, or in the middle of their 9th grade year. So them having this pre-test it's so helpful. We might move less than 5 kids now, and we used to move more than 50. So it's really, I think it's great because we now have so many more kids so we have an advanced algebra 2 class that these freshmen would sit with 11th graders, because if they've already taken algebra 1 and they're good at it, we used to just have an advanced algebra 1. But now they can go take advanced algebra 2, and it was hard to know like the recommendations from the school districts, but now I can see like this kid just ace everything that's in this course, so like let's bump them up, and then that gives them more opportunity of different classes as they get to their 12th grade year. So I'm so glad that we do this now, and I think Rebecca can attest to the fact that there's so much less change and like less anxiety for our freshmen because of that test. So it's really from 9th to 10th grade, it's like algebra 1, geometry. These are kind of what has to happen. And then once they get into 11th and 12th grade, there's just different things that they can do. And if they do bump up into this advanced algebra 2 class, then they get to take pre-calc, and then a lot of times those are the kids that are recommended for our AP Stats class. And then AP Stats. So AP Stats is our advanced placement in the math. It's different than I think any other subject because statistics is so different than any math we teach, right? They take algebra 1, algebra 2, geometry, and stats, and I'm great at taking it. It's like a different language. I remember taking stats in college and being like, what is this, So it's completely different. So we look at kids that have good math skills, but also kids that have good writing skills, because they need to explain the math that they're seeing in this class. And they can earn college credit for it. Last year we had 2 students get that credit. So that's it. That's all I got for you. Does anybody have any questions?
No, I just wanted to, no question, your finance, what did you call it again?
Financial literacy.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I know my kids came out of high school, they knew nothing about what you just
Yeah.
indicated there.
Yeah. So, and I know besides financial literacy, the kids that I was saying, like if they have to take 4 years of math, we have a class called Integrated 4, and they do a lot of these skills in that class, but just like not as much. I know, like when I used to teach that class, I showed them how to write a check. These kids, they couldn't even sign their name, So we practiced literally our signature and like what the checks mean and all that stuff. So yeah, I think it is a great class.
I have a question.
Sure.
A couple of years back, I happened to be going to the convenience store across the street that all the kids go to.
Sure.
And I was in there, and the owner at that time said to me, Mike, you gotta work with the kids on a problem. I said, what's that? He said, well, they came in to buy some candy and soda and stuff, and they had one kid had an ATM card, and he put it into the machine, and the owner said, you gotta put in your PIN number. He said, well, you do it, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So he said, I think they need a little work.
Yeah,
So,
I think that this class essentially will,
congratulations.
go over all of that stuff, from, hopefully not making it 1, 2, 3, 4, but
And I have another general question, maybe directed at Superintendent Andy. Don't some of the shops also give a little business type of training during the shop classes? I remember.
Part of their competencies is employability skills, so there's definitely integrated there. Many of the shops integrate math as well. So one of the wonderful things I know, Liz did a great job talking about that 90 days. And that was sort of the wake-up call I had when I came to Smith was, how are these students going to meet the same standard as a Northampton high student when they're in instructional class half the amount of time? I think we have an excellent math and English team, okay, so if they get quality instruction to begin with, the extra class in the shop side that Liz alluded to, I think helps, but also the integration within the shops. If you think about math class in the traditional high school, a lot of students are saying, I'm never going to understand this algebra, I'm never going to use this algebra, why am I learning this algebra? But you got to understand the algebra when you're in shop class. So I think just having that relationship between the shop and the academic stuff.
I mean, I see them do it when I come in the restaurant, like basic, right, money, and I watch them count it over there, I'll try to help them out, but, they're interested in money and how they're going to use so this class, they, it matters to them. So.
I want to highlight Mr. Bianca real quick to then be to an athlete. But Mr. Bianca's done a great job with Mr. Parks every year. post MCAS, the math team analyzes the data until the cows come home. Same thing with the English team, science, and so on and so forth. But then Mr. Bianca asks each department to get up at a faculty meeting and talk about sort of the big takeaways and perhaps one suggestion that we could all sort of integrate into our areas. And I thought your idea this year was excellent. I want to share with the board something very simple, but it was.
I wish I had my picture of Joe that I had made.
I know, I should have played this.
That's the real shame of this. Yeah, so basically, every year, like you said, we have to do one very simple thing, okay? 2 years ago, it was that money in America goes to pennies. That was it, okay? Kids would write 197.8275, and it's like, that's not how it works. So that was our first basic thing that we did. Last year's was that 2 negatives is not always equal a positive, okay? It depends, are we adding, are we multiplying? But this year's was, if Mr. Bianca got a 59 out of 70 on his quiz, what is that as a percent? Because kids are like, what did I get? We got a 59 out of 70, well, what is that as a percent, And so the division sign, can I use your notebook? Thank you. Right, the division, right? So if it was 59, I can't do this upside down. 59 out of 70, it's just 59 divided by 70, and then the first 2 numbers are your percent, right? So when I give them back a test, I hand them back the 59 out of 70. I used to do the math for them, tell them what they got. And now I'm like, well, you figure it out. And they want to know what they got on that test. And so now, because it's important to them, they know how to take a fraction and turn it into a percent. So we try to come up with like very simple things. Like all of the shops can use something like that, right? All of the shops can use that. Like Cindy Wilmette was telling me, like she was so thankful I did the money thing because she runs into it in Cosmo all the time. They'll put like 0.875 or 0.8, and they don't know if the 0.8 is 80 cents or 8 cents. So these are the basic things that that we're dealing with. So that's what I created, but I also created a very good-looking, cute meme of Joe, and that's what I wish I could put up. I told Andy he's next. He's next. What? Yes.
I have a couple questions. Thank you so much for explaining all this, and that program so strong here. I don't expect you to be able to answer either of these questions right now on the spot, but maybe to be thinking about them and come back with an answer. So the first question is if, MCAS doesn't measure all of the math standards.
Right.
And so I would be interested in hearing from you about what standards aren't measured that you wish were, that we potentially could, if we wanted to as a school/district. So that's one question. That's a bigger question.
Is that going to be in the notes so I can take it to my math meeting? Thank you. All right. Great.
And then, with MCAS not being a graduation requirement, it presents an opportunity to be thinking maybe more broadly and sometimes more deeply about this. And then the other question is, we had our policy subcommittee meeting. We talked about the school's graduation requirements, which we'll, I'll speak to when we have committee reports. But a concern was definitely expressed that students may not try as hard on MCAS.
They're not going to.
And so then those results aren't going to be valid or necessarily useful to your department at all. And so my question is, do we have data right now that is helpful in identifying student strengths and weaknesses in terms of their math knowledge and skills? What should we be thinking about in terms of something that gives you and your department that information that is so essential?
Sure. Yeah, I actually can talk to that one right there. So, maybe if I'm going. Whoop. So, what I can tell you is, when we used to do the item analysis, we used to spend 3 meetings on it. I'm gonna be straight with you. I'm not going to look at that anymore. It will be a complete waste of my time. I have kids telling me like, why would I try? And that's a different conversation. But I can take the MCAS out of it. Even when it did count, it's one of many factors that we use to evaluate data. If you want the honest truth, I would love it if you would come watch me teach one day. As I teach, I feel like old school teaching was like you would talk for a half an hour and then kids would try stuff. when I teach, it's like interactive. You know, we do step one. I make sure every kid knows how to do step one. They have little mini whiteboards, and if they don't get it, I make sure they get it, and then I go to step two. So my daily formative assessment, I can tell you what a kid knows, what a kid doesn't know in 3 days. And then because we have common end of trimester tests, if they were different, I don't think we would be able to essentially really, we could still use them, but not as well, you know, like I'm teaching and I have another teacher parallel to me teaching completely different, you know, ways, but because we're using the same assessments at the end of term, we can then compare what these kids know, and we're not always at the exact same spot, but we, you know, like she might be a couple days ahead or behind me, but we can, you know, assess the same things. So I think those trimester exams to me are much more important than even an MCAS ever was when it did count, because it's what I've personally taught them, and it's through a broad, you know, it's through trimester one is all trimester one. Trimester two isn't just trimester two, it's from the start of the year to trimester two, and then the final exam is the whole year, you know, so it's really interesting to see the final exams and what do they remember from, you know, the beginning of the year. And, you know, so I think, and I like do stations in my room, so say if in March, right, I'm teaching equations right now, right, I don't go back to teach that, but I expect them to know it on my trimester tests, on my final exams. So on my final, I expect a kid to remember something from November. That's not really fair. But at the end of my lessons, every day kids go into stations. And a station might be, you know, they're playing a math game, it's about equations. That's not what I taught that day. So it's like a spiraling curriculum. Somebody in that group will remember how to solve equations and they'll explain it to their group. I didn't have to teach that to them. So they're going to get something like that, you know, 5 or 6 times. And then I really think that these end of trimester exams are much more important than an MCAS was, even like that. So, yeah.
And I was in your classroom, and I wanted to join what the students were
Oh, that's
doing.
right, Andy brought you in one
A
day. Were they
testament.
doing the station?
Yeah, it was a testament to their approach to teaching, when somebody wants to join in.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, Tom's been in my room.
Yeah, I've been in her class, and I like the way she teaches because she like explains it a certain way for you to remember. And like taking those trimester exams too, I feel like it helped me a lot, like just remember what she taught me. So going into MCAS, I was like, I know exactly this question, how to solve it, even though it was like back in the start of the year.
I'll pay him later.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Joe, I run the principal's report, please.
What?
Have the principal's report.
You're not,
I'm the one last time.
Yeah, we changed, yeah.
Apologize. Yeah, good evening, everybody. Currently enrollment's at 583 students. If you look at the admissions data, you can see the last 5 years. So we're at 197 applications, which is about 1 under where we were at this point last year. So for all intents and purposes, we're on the same pace. You can notice that from Northampton, it's still elevated, so it's 21.8 at this point. Last year, we were at 20.2. And the year before, we were at 23.5. So, you know, we are seeing that elevated interest from Northampton. Freshman placements occurred, so I do want to publicly thank all the teachers for their attention this year to get rubrics done quickly and get them out. This was about 3 years ago we started the process that I would just like to highlight for the board. At that time, we did have a rubric. It was not universally being used throughout all the shops about 4 years ago on COVID. We formed a committee that was funded through Perkins money. We brought staff together. We looked at rubrics, scoring rubrics from other vocational schools. We looked at our old rubric. We did surveys. We got feedback from students. We got feedback from staff. And we redid our whole entire rubric. And then we had it evaluated through the lens of special ed and bias, and are we scoring things fairly and equitably. And we created a 4-category rubric, and then there were 4 additional optional that then staff could choose. So the first 4, which were the foundational, were out of 20 points each, which equaled 80% of the score. The 4 optionals, this is where the different shops can have a little bit of choice and pick 2 of the 4 that they felt was most important for their area. So it might be, you know, in carpentry, they may choose following safety, safety's on all of them, but following cleanup and other things is very important, right? Organizing, cleaning up, and making sure that all your tools and equipment are back. That may not have the same benefit in criminal justice. So they may choose professionalism part. So there was choice that was built in. So we rolled out those rubrics, so staff were scoring with them. Last year was the first full year, and but we didn't necessarily share out the rubrics. Parallel to that, we also moved to make exploratory graded and appear on the report card and count for credit towards graduation. So previously with that, it was not appearing on the report card for 2 reasons. One, it was ending before. At times it was ending before we issued report cards. And secondly, because not everybody was using sort of that universal rubric, we weren't reporting the scores on the transcript. The second thing is the first 15 days that we call pre-exploratory did not have the rubric. So there was 15 days unscored, then there was 4 weeks scored, and not all rubrics were the same. So last year, we officially went to the full time being graded. The 15 days have their own rubric, which is sort of nested in the 4-week rubric. So elements of it are the same. And then the 4 weeks were graded. So that was last year. This year, the next step, the final step, and it was reported on the report card last year. You all voted last year or the year before that to make it a graduation requirement to pass it. So it is a pass-fail course for graduation. It's worth 6 credits. This year, the timeline of getting the rubrics in was very important because we started universally sending those rubrics home. So this now, because it's graded, because it's in Rediker and it's a class, parents can log in and see those grades in real time. And we're sending home the rubrics so they can evaluate where their child is in the process and how they're doing in every single shop program. Some feedback that we got this year was that families and students had better conversations when it came time to choosing their final shops. And to be perfectly honest, they said it did positively affect choices that they made. So they maybe put a shop area first that they wouldn't have normally put first because they were able to look at how they performed in all the shops, making a more educated decision, and then they were able to choose their shop they felt like a little more confident. So that is something that I want to talk about, just briefly. But last week, guidance went through, crunched all those numbers, placed all those students, and then you can see the results of that placement there. 8 programs are full. Several others are very close to full, but those are the numbers where you listed as to what every shop is. I will say last year we had 9 programs fill, and there is some overlap with certain programs like Ag Mech, Animal Science, Criminal Justice, Electrical, Plumbing, and then there's some new ones that didn't fill the previous year, like Health Assisting, Culinary, Horticulture. So it's not always every year the same ones fill. There's a core that fill, and that we're known best for, and then there's others that shift. So that's the results of that. Our school council met today. We began discussing, again, the update of our school improvement goals. As I reported last time, we're looking to take a little more active role in making sure that we achieve those goals now that we're in our 3rd year. So one of the things that we've done is we're creating a series of surveys so that we can create a template that will go out to shops around a shop information sheet, which was to provide information for new students once they were placed that will go to the students and the families. So we finalized those surveys today, and they'll go out on January 3rd. Youth Advisory, Dom's a member of the Youth Advisory also. We met on December 12th. We began going through that vocal data for 10th grade students, and the vocal data is about school climate and how students feel about their school, about their teachers, about other things. And that's part of the MCAS. So that's given at the end of the MCAS. Students are asked to take that survey, and it provides a lot of valuable data. We divided the data into basically two halves. We went over half that day, and we'll go over the next 50% at our meeting in January. And then we have a survey that we do every 2 years around school climate, so that'll go out again. And then we'll work with the youth advisory to sort of identify areas that they think we should focus on, create informational campaigns, and maybe be able to come up with some strategic planning around improving. So we did that. I don't know if you want anything to share on that. I'm putting you on the spot.
No, there was some certain like percentages that were good and bad, but as a committee, we're like coming together to figure out like which ones we really want to improve on, and like just show the good and bad on how the school's doing.
I think one of the things that was eye-opening, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things that was eye-opening is you might see a number that looks really high, but when you dig into that number and you see it divided by male-female, females may be, say it was an 88%, and the females might be at 95%, and the males are down at 78%, so are at 85%. The question is, where's that gap, and how come when it comes to perception of things? So I think you guys found that kind of eye-opening.
Yeah, just seeing like how male female like change is different at the school, seeing like how they feel.
Yeah, it was very interesting stuff. And it was fun to go through with the students and look at it and hear their reasoning and their ideas behind the data and why they felt it came out that way. Our building level budget proposals are due by this Friday, and then I'll work with Ms. Fairman to kind of go through and organize those, and then we'll set up meetings with each department for the 3rd and 4th week of January before we create a final budget proposal that we'll work with Dr. Lincoln Hoper on, and then he'll present to the board. And then finally, some good news, right? We did our annual toy drive again with the National Honor Society. And this year we got almost 70, I think it was over 75 toys. And they brought it to the WWLP studios this year. So, any of your questions, that's my report this evening.
Thank you. Julie, committee reports?
The policy subcommittee met last week to review the district's graduation requirements and future potential considerations, since passing MCAS will no longer be required by the state. And the determination of students' readiness to graduate rests completely with individual districts. Dr. Lincoln Hoper, Mr. Bianca, Ms. Wanzik, Mr. Parks, and Ms. Chartier all made important contributions to a thoughtful and energized discussion. Currently, Smith Folk students are required to pass SHOP every year with a grade of 60 or higher, pass a minimum of 4 years of English and PE, 3 years of history or social studies and science, 2 years of health education with a grade of 60 or higher, and meet attendance standards of no more than 8 days of unexcused absences on each side of their school year, so SHOP and academics. Students will still be required to take MCAS in order to comply with federal regulations, but there were strong concerns voiced from some administrators present about students not taking the test seriously, as I mentioned before, and the resulting data therefore being essentially meaningless as an indicator of students' readiness to graduate or subject matter competency. We may want to consider whether the current requirements are enough or if we want something more. And state legislators will also be taking up that question in January of whether to establish a new statewide competency determination. There's a lot of discussion around that, as I'm sure you all know. And then in terms of strategic planning work, Dr. Lincoln Hoper, Mr. Quadro, and I continue to prepare for a presentation on D-building that will take place at our January meeting. Mr. Quadro has reviewed the architect's report and feasibility study done on D-building. Dr. Lincoln Hoker has collected data on student enrollment trends generally for this region and also specifically for the 15 shops. And I've gathered information about the employment outlook for our shops. I think it would also be helpful for us to have an assessment from Mr. Bianca and Ms. Chartier about how well matched the facilities and equipment are to the student learning needs in each shop. And so I'd like to request that they prepare a report for us.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith is on a very well-deserved vacation. The library reno is underway. They're in the process of painting new ceilings. We're scheduling the flooring the carpet to be ripped up, hoping by either Friday or Saturday. The goal is to have it completed before the break is over and hopefully get some furniture back in. The residing of the multi-species barn is about 50% completed and may be paused and completed next summer. The LED lighting project has been completed. I'm actually meeting with an inspector on Thursday so they can review all of the lights that were installed. And that's it for Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
The MS barn is beautiful. My sister was visiting from New York over the Thanksgiving break, and I just drove her around campus to show her, especially I wanted to see the construction site. And then we looped around, and I hadn't seen it in a while and was just blown away. I think it looks absolutely beautiful.
Question regarding the renos in the library. So the place is being painted.
Correct.
You're redoing the floor,
Correct.
new carpet type of,
No.
Laminate flooring.
okay. And the lighting upgrade, is that done in the library? I thought that was being done in-house
That's gonna be done by electrical students.
by electrical, right? But is it being done while you're,
No, because it's all this work is getting done now through break. So they're gonna be starting that probably in January or February.
What color it will be?
It's a light green, but it's not like
Like a sage green?
Yeah.
sage green.
this lighter than this?
Maybe like
Softer.
Softer. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
And there'll be a new circulation desk in there too.
In the same place or?
That being done by cabinet making or
No.
it's all
That's,
subbed out?
yep.
The city council tentative meeting is January 2nd with the city council and the mayor, of course. Still waiting, the student activity audit, the auditor is coming in on Thursday and Friday. We're gonna review the audit because he has not released the report, just because I found a few questions I had before it got submitted. The audit of the grants will be Thursday and Friday, and then the end of year audit will be tomorrow for FY24. The cafeteria administrative audit that took place on December 5th. Ms. Booley and I met with the reviewer after her full day here evaluating the cafeteria, the staff, and Ms. Booley's records. She was very pleased. She was very pleased with the cleanliness of the cafeteria. She only had positive things to say about everything. We do have a few items that need to be corrected. She did not expect the letter to go out until after the holidays because you have 2 weeks to complete the items to be returned. So she said look for the final report after the holidays. We did have to add an additional student van for a student, so that will change the charge for transportation and tuition. We're preparing the second round of tuition invoices. I will be able to give you an update at the January meeting where we stand. And the part of the audit, the cafeteria wellness policy needs to be updated. And we did take that language from NASC.
So the city council hearing on January 2nd, wow, that's ambitious, just meeting on that day, no, it is a day, yeah. That is when our requests will be reviewed, is that correct, the requests that we put in?
Correct. And that gives the city council the opportunity to ask Mr. Smith, Mr. Shear, and over myself questions.
Okay, so the public hearing, and then the vote will be at the, hopefully at the next meeting. Looking forward to hearing positive vote.
What time is that meeting on the second?
I don't think,
6:30.
oh,
And this is in,
It's in council chambers, but it's also on Zoom. It's a hybrid meeting.
Mr. Carter, I can share the link when you see it.
yeah, see if I can squeeze this in somehow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board. Welcome to the restaurant, so. Jump in, I apologize for the small font, but for discussion around some of these topics. So under instructional leadership, I just want to highlight, annually I've been asked to go to this, the criminal justice program. Actually, Mr. Aquaggio had a question about the employability skills. This is one of the skills that in the criminal justice program, they talk about presentation skills, public speaking, interview skills, are all related. So they actually do this through Shark Tank model. So students are teamed up, they have to come up with some type of product, and then they pitch that product to the sharks. I happen to be a shark, so it's a fun, entertaining experience. It's honestly quite interesting to see what students come up with. Sort of my gold star this year was the team came up with heated handles for ski poles. So you wouldn't have to necessarily wear big bulky mittens or gloves. The heat comes from the pole. I thought that was fascinating. If I had the money, I would have invested in it. The next topic, there's a lot here. I'm going to, per the request from the board, to give the board an update on the companion animal program as a whole. I want to remind the board, we have the new what we call the new companion animal building, but that's specifically for just one segment of the overall companion animal concentration. That new building will be for dog and cat kenneling and grooming, but in addition to that, we have a pocket pet lab and whatnot. So there's a lot that goes into the companion animal concentration. And I want to thank Mr. Bianca and Ms. Chartier for providing a lot of background information that I can share with you this evening to show you, where are we in sort of the spectrum and getting everything up and running. So first of all, the juniors and seniors, they are allowed to pick a concentration. So this is sort of the model. Freshman year, sophomore year, you have the foundational skills. Junior year, senior year, you can sort of branch off and have a concentration, almost like a major at a college level. So they're able to choose the concentration, whether it's livestock or companion animal, and then they begin the training in that curriculum in January. That's sort of the model that we want to unveil. This year, they actually surveyed the juniors and seniors to say, hey, which concentration would you prefer to pursue? We have 14 juniors, 14 seniors. The juniors all selected livestock. None of the 14 selected companion animal this year. Of the 14 seniors, it was more split. We had 8 who actually wanted to go with the companion animal, and we have 6 that wanted to remain in the more traditional livestock. So we were sort of caught off guard of the lack of initial interest from the juniors. So what we're going to do is offer sort of like a mini exploratory program for the juniors in January to sort of get their hands really back into companion animals, show them what the opportunities are, and then see if any of the juniors change their mind and want to slide over to companion animals. So we're going to give them a second chance to see what their options are. And the juniors, actually, the responses back to the instructors was that they just needed more exposure. They really didn't know what companion animal was all about. So rather than choosing it, they want more hands-on opportunities before they make a choice. I already mentioned the freshmen and sophomores. They'll sort of cycle through, being exposed to the grooming and the daycare, the pocket pet lab. They're going to be working in small groups, learning those foundational skills. They're going to be working with Ms. Irish, who is the animal science instructor who oversees the companion animal concentration. along with the upperclassmen. So they're gonna get some hands-on, so by the time they become juniors, they'll be more informed, they can make that decision on which concentration to pursue. All the staff and the students, they're currently being trained on the POS system and the scheduling software, so they'll be ready to go. And as the seniors build foundational skills, and this is happening right now, we're going to then begin to phase in some trusted dogs and cats into the grooming facility. Again, as a reminder, the ultimate goal down the road is this becomes more of a staff benefit. We're not necessarily looking at opening this up to the public, but for potential staff, that they can schedule the dogs or the cats. But before we even get to that point, we really want to start with some very trusted dogs and cats to make sure that everything is running smoothly. Some areas that we've identified as not necessarily problem areas, but areas that we have to solve before we totally get up and running. One is the insurance. Okay, there's been some back and forth working out what type of insurance that we need to have to be covering our liability. Any waivers and informational materials, we're actually consulting with other programs, other schools to make sure that we have everything that's consistent with what we need to protect ourselves and our students. Right now, with no current juniors selecting the companion animal, the grooming and the daycare side won't be available during the 9-11 week. Okay, obviously, if there's no juniors in that concentration, in that particular shop, we wouldn't be open for dogs and cats. Hopefully that will change once we have that mini exploratory for the juniors. And then money is always a concern, and we're facing the concern right now. So the funds to purchase the animals, purchase feed, and ensure the long-term medical care for the pocket pet labs, the pocket pet animals, we're sort of struggling. Okay, we sort of ran through all the money. We need to buy guinea pigs, we need to buy hamsters and mice, and so on and so forth. Okay, as part of that pocket pet concentration, or sub-concentration of the companion animal program. The funds in the grant that we did receive were disallowed. So the state said we could not use the state funding to purchase animals. That was not covered by the grant. So we do currently have some rabbits down in the pocket pet lab, but right now that's the only species that we have in the pocket pet lab. What kind of money are we looking at? We probably need about $3,000 to $5,000 in order to outfit that sub-program. And we have a few ideas. I'll talk about one donation that we're in the midst of receiving. Hopefully that's going to help us out. But over the next year or two, through the budget cycle, our plan is to, again, expand and make sure that we have that particular pocket pet lab up and running as well. Any questions before I move on? I know this has been sort of an ongoing topic. I just wanted to give a brief overview of where we are and we're getting there.
Thank you for this. It's great to hear the progress being made. To me, it makes sense that, the juniors and seniors who chose animal science they chose it when they were only large animals. And so I'm not surprised, I'm not shocked that there is maybe not so much interest in the companion animals. My first question is about the CJ Shark Tank presentation. If you could just help me understand the relationship between Shark Tank and the criminal justice curriculum.
Yeah, so it's the public speaking, it's the responding under pressure. I'm not going to pat myself on the back, but I can be sort of a jerk to the students, and I do that on purpose to sort of apply that, it creates some anxiety, creates some stress. There's an adult giving that person a hard time on the product that they really believe in, and it sort of builds their confidence in that public speaking.
So it's like with essay writing, if you can choose a topic that you want to write about, you'll learn the mechanics of essay writing. Well, same idea. If you choose the idea that you want to,
You believe in that idea, and now you have somebody challenging you over that idea, and how you respond,
yeah,
how that interaction, which is great.
And my other question is, can you, I think I knew this at one time, but I'm not sure, remind me, at how many other shops do students choose concentrations in their time?
Here at Smith, not necessarily.
Horticulture is
Well, horticulture there are different concentrations within the horticulture zip code. But we don't necessarily, here at Smith, ask the students to choose arboriculture over greenhouse management, over turf management, over floriculture. We just sort of encompass it all.
They learn it all. So in this case, the choice is necessitated by the different facilities and resources and curriculum.
The difference in the animals, correct?
Yeah.
Right. Other questions? Moving on to management, we've had two-hour delays, okay? I will be very thankful if we get into the December break with no snow days. But I thought it was a great opportunity to update the board and inform the board how such a decision occurs. So if you have any questions from the public or the community, why is Smith doing a 2-hour delay or a snow day and Northampton's not? I think the most recent one, we actually had a 2-hour delay, but Northampton, you were open on time. So I thought this is maybe a great example to sort of compare and contrast. So unlike a traditional superintendent, unfortunately for Dr. Bonner, has to be up at really early. I'm sure talking to the DPW and potentially the police department, depending on where you are. How are the road conditions? Is it safe? They're really doing a lot of consulting work. In my position, with so many sitting districts, I am not on the phone with any DPW. I am not on the phone with any police department. I am simply, quite honestly, looking at a text thread of all of my colleagues to see what are the other setting districts doing. And in essence, I'm doing a numbers game. Because if I open school on time or delay, but we have a vast majority of our setting districts closed, we would have a school day with no students. And there's really no point to that educationally. So I'm sort of looking at our major districts, what are they doing? I begin to fall in line, which is why sometimes we may be open or closed and Northampton may not know. So I just wanted the board to understand that. It's really contingent on what is happening with our setting districts. On the horticulture building, I think Craig did a great job highlighting finally some great movement. And if you go down there, you'll see that the steel columns are put up today very quickly. It's very nice to see some progress around there.
Thank you for sharing the pictures and the materials.
Oh, Craig did, yes. So some photos, this actually Craig made, took this photo last Thursday as the concrete slab began to be poured. I got down there just before 7 o'clock. It was a massive operation, to be honest. They had a full crew working the concrete. I don't think you see in this picture, I think this picture was taken after the fact, but when I was there right before 7, they were pouring the concrete, and then they had 2 workers actually with leaf blowers, blowing the ice and the water away. So they were sort of multitasking to make sure that the subsurface was dry and ready to accept the concrete. So they did a great job. So this is today. Again, these are the steel columns that Craig referenced. They were all placed today. So it's great to see. Okay. Dr. Spencer Robinson, you mentioned the MS barn. So I took it from the good side. We all have good sides and bad sides. This is the good side of the barn. It's amazing. Okay, so all new windows. Obviously, the metal siding to tie in with the other barns that we have down back. I think once we're all done, the idea is when you drive down from Florence, you're going to see beautiful pastures and beautiful updated barns. We'll sort of be in the realm and competition of Essex Tech before you know it. So, unfortunately, again, this is the good side, because if I walked around, this side is not finished. We have the material on hand, but the contracts we had for the hired help, we ran out of money. Okay, so we have to wait until next fiscal year so we can renew that contract so we can finish the siding. So we're almost there. Great job.
So not until July 1?
After July 1, we can get back up and running. So just stay on the good side and it looks good. So under family and community engagement, we had a December newsletter that went out. And then a few other updates. So the mock interview day, again, I want to thank the guidance staff. They really oversee the mock interview day. Is for the juniors, back to that public speaking, employability skill. It is a true highlight. I think we get a lot of positive feedback from the employers. I've heard of a couple students who, through that mock interview process, they've actually been offered positions. So it's a great opportunity. Back in November, at the last meeting, I was talking about how I was talking about CTE admissions. There was a subcommittee meeting sort of at the last minute. That was the Tuesday going into Thanksgiving break. There was sort of a subcommittee was created. They had their first meeting talking about what data they want to receive from the Department of Ed. So that started. Mr. Bianca talked about the secret toy exchange, another great afternoon with the staff. It's amazing what we can do for the kids in the area. Last week we had a wonderful dinner fundraiser for the Italian trip. The cafeteria was packed. There were a lot of gifts that were auctioned off. We had our own internal auctioneer. So they did a wonderful job. And I want to say net profit, all said and done, about $8,000, which is amazing. So I want to thank everybody that was involved with that.
And the food is good.
The food was good. Pasta, you can't go wrong with pasta. Last night, there was a Board of Ed, another follow-up CTE admissions subcommittee meeting. I just want to give an update to the board of what we discussed last night. It really was perfect timing from the presentation I shared with the board last month, talking about the Smith data and how, if you look at the Smith data, specifically the Northampton students, okay, you have the catchment area of the Northampton 8th graders, okay, so the population pool that we can draw from. And of that pool, how many choose to apply here? And within that applicant pool, how many are receive an offer and eventually come here? And I walked the board through all of that. I explained how years ago, when you simply looked at the demographics of the Northampton students walking the campus versus the Northampton students who went to to Northampton High, they were representative. They were very similar. Okay, so we actually looked good in the eyes of the Department of Ed. Things changed over the last few years, and we've been sort of getting some heat on the admissions policy that we were not accepting the same percentage of, as an example, students of color versus white students. Or we weren't accepting at the same percentage of low-income students versus the non-low-income students, okay? So we've been sort of questioned on that. Last night, the Board of Ed really dove into that discussion, okay? And the Board of Ed really grilled the Department of Ed of what measurement, what matrix are you using to identify which schools are struggling and which schools you want to target? Is it a vocational school is representative of ascendant district or not? We are, okay? Or is it the admissions criteria you're accepting at different percentages of the subgroups, which is what's happening to us, okay? And through a great discussion last night, the Department of Ed in essence said it's both, okay? The representative argument, are the students who are walking the halls of Smith Folk, are they representative of the students walking the halls of Northampton High? We are representative. That's the federal mandate, okay? So we are meeting the federal mandate. The concern at the state level that the admissions policy is creating disparities, okay, that we're not accepting at the same rate, the state feels there's an equity issue there, and that's what they want to dive into. So I stand by my comments last month, okay? I am very happy that with the students that we have. But yes, there is a question around why are the students of color not being accepted at the same rate as white students? Why are the low-income students not accepted at the same rate as non-low income? Why, okay, special ed? We have a very high percentage of special ed students here on campus, more so than at Northampton High. But when you look within the applicant pool of students who are special ed, a smaller percentage were accepted. So what is happening? So I stand by that. I think it's worthy of a conversation at the board level. The state is definitely taking up that conversation. Where it goes and the end result, I don't know yet. So I'll keep the board updated. And then this morning, unfortunately, I had it on in my presentation, full intention of making it to that meeting. I could not this morning. I guess the big takeaway of today's meeting, not really pertinent to the board, but the acting commissioner made the announcement this morning he is not running for the permanent job. So he is out. I'll leave that there.
Can I ask you a question about admissions? Is the state also looking at the admissions policies of comprehensive high schools? So if you've got a high school that has vocational programs within it and they have an admissions policy where their own students have to apply to those programs, is the state looking for bias in those policies, the application of those policies in comprehensive high school, or just the regional schools?
Right now, they're only discussing the regionals. I would hope that if there's any change in regulations, it will also pertain to the municipal schools.
Yeah, do you know why they aren't looking at comprehensive?
I don't know. Good question.
Because it seems like it's a pretty significant omission. I mean, there are quite a few comprehensive high schools.
Yes. So under family and community engagement, I have a few slides. I just want to give an opportunity for the board to hear from me, but behind the scenes are really in working with Ms. Fairman and Mr. Wider, one of our school counselors, to talk about scholarships. Sort of the current protocol of what happens with the scholarships. And this is sort of a protocol that I think there's always room for improvement. I think if you talk to anybody internally, we'd say the same thing. I think over the years, who's been in charge of what has changed. And so I want to thank Ms. Fairman and Mr. Wider for what I'm about to present. This is their work, just sort of benchmarking where are we currently. And the challenge I asked both of them was almost like a flow chart, like we talked about. So there's an outside person with some money who wants to help the school out and provide a scholarship. What's the process? Okay, so I'm going to try to walk you through. Okay, it may seem confusing because there's so many nuances to this that we're trying to incorporate into like 3 slides. But then as the time goes on, we can always update all of you. Ideally, let go. If there's any policy change, go through the policy subcommittee and formalize this so the board's totally on board. So really, the first section is what is that scholarship awarder's role? I have some money. I want to give it to the school for a scholarship. What is my role? What is my responsibility? So question number 1 is, are you going to manage your own money, or do you want to give the money to the school to manage? Okay. If I decide I want to manage my own money, okay, I will be communicating with the school, typically through guidance, because guidance also oversees the awards program. So I want to keep my money. I will work with guidance, and I'm going to discuss how to present the check. So we typically have the senior awards night that many of you attend in the springtime. So what does that look like? And then also what to include in the presentation. So what will be read at the awards night? Many times an outside presenter doesn't go into the awards night, so they provide a little blurb to be read at the particular awards night. So that is an outside scholarship individual or group who manages their own money, but they want to give them a check every year. How does that happen? They work through guidance. If the scholarship is to be invested by the school, then there's particular forms that have to be filled out. So those documents will be provided to the awarder to help them decide what type of scholarship. So there's fund details, investment preferences, so on and so forth. So there's a whole packet that has to be filled out by an outside awarder if they want to provide us the money that we then in turn manage and invest to maintain the longevity of that particular scholarship. And then finally, the criteria in the selection, so that awarder, the outside individual or group, they must determine the criteria for the selection. And that can include any number of things. It's their money, they can decide how they want to give it out. It could be a student application, it could be an essay, it could be other requirements. We have scholarships simply based on where you live, okay? Or you are in a particular shop, or you're pursuing some type of post-secondary exploration. Any criteria that the individual or group wants, they can implement. All of that criteria, whatever it happens to be, is given to the scholarship committee, which is an internal group. It's typically the guidance counselors, typically an administrator or administrators, typically senior class advisors, and perhaps some others. They come together and they actually make the final selections on the recipients, trying to be equitable as much as possible. So that's sort of from, I'm an individual with money, what do I do? Who do I talk to? It kind of depends. Okay, there's going to be a lot of it depends, but we're going to try to streamline that even more. Timeline. So in January, February, the guidance office will be reaching out to all previous non-managed scholarship contributors. Okay, so basically any individuals or groups who've given a scholarship in the past. They're contacted and they're asked, do you want to continue? Do you want to give another scholarship this year as we build that awards program? The contributors' information, including the type of scholarship and its criteria, is documented. So again, we're going to review, this is what we gave last year. Do you want to make any changes? And then finally, this information helps the school organize the scholarships by criteria. Again, the fact that the selective team, okay, making sure that we try to be as equitable as possible. If there's any changes, we want to make sure that we're not not knowingly, giving one particular student a lot of scholarships, so we can spread the wealth a little bit, no pun intended. In receiving the funds, again, it depends. So a lot of scholarships are sent to the school either in the name of the awardee or made payable to the school. Sometimes this happens through, as an example, an obituary. Okay, so an individual may pass away. In the obituary, it calls for contributions to be made out to Smith Brook for a scholarship or whatever. We're receiving these checks, and we then have to work through all of that processing in the business office. Whether it's through that process or an individual comes forward and here's money, I want you to take it and invest it. We have to deposit all of those investments through the city now. Okay, we did that changeover. What year was that?
2 years ago?
A couple years ago. And then those funds are then cut via check by the city. So we no longer write those checks. It all goes through the city now. The awards night decisions, the awarder or the school, again, it all depends, decides how the award will be presented during the award ceremony. Again, will somebody from the outside come in, will we present internally, all of those decisions have to be made. He's going to touch on it, the distribution of the funds. So the business office, okay, so some of the checks come to us as a business office, and that might be trustee scholarships or checks made out to the school, okay. In cases where the check is written to the school, it's processed through the investment account like we already mentioned, and the city handles all of that, okay. Student pickup, so this example is, we actually have a scholarship, we have a check made out to somebody, and that student will pick it up either that night at the awards program or go to the business office, depending on the nuance there. There's option 2, the student pickup. Some organizations, mostly because they want, it is probably marketing, which is a great opportunity. Some organizations will require the student to go to some type of function or an event that particular outside group has to receive a scholarship. So as an example, the Amherst Rotary. So if I receive the Amherst Rotary scholarship, I will be going to an upcoming Amherst Rotary meeting to receive that scholarship. Okay. And then lastly, again, we're looking to expand and grow, become more efficient. I just want to highlight the second bullet really. Really since we've been here, the amount of scholarships awarded continues to expand, which is a great problem to have. Okay, we've received approximately 20 to 30 more scholarships over the past decade or so, which is great. Okay, it just means that we have to be more efficient to make sure that we don't have anything fall through the cracks. So I think that is. Oh, manage. I'm sorry. If the scholarship is managed by the school, the funds are directed to the business office and invested in the accounts, like we already mentioned that. Any questions around, it seems kind of nuanced, but there's a lot of conversation, a lot of discussions that have to happen, a lot of decisions that have to happen, and we do our best, whether it's the business office and or guidance, trying to work through any of those nuances and having the outside individual or group heard and make sure that their wishes are fulfilled. That's really the bottom line. So, questions?
Can you go back a couple slides, please? I want to make sure I'm understanding this. I think go back even more. Okay, so let's say I have $20,000 that I want to use for scholarships at Smith Brook. So one option is for me or my family, whatever, but let's just say me, to manage the $20,000 myself, so I invest it. And then the dividends from that investment from year to year probably will change, and I write out a check for whatever those dividends are, and it goes to the guidance office, and they decide. So another option is for me, and then the guidance office has to follow up with all of those every year, has to follow up and say, hey, are you still giving the award again? I'm kind of wondering why that would stop, but who knows, probably lots of reasons. But so they have to follow up on all of those to say, are you still giving the dividends from that investment that you manage for this scholarship? And how much is the amount?
What? Yes. To answer that question, you kind of ask yourself.
Yeah.
Many times it's not $20,000. So many times through an obituary, as an example, they receive $500. and it's a one-time scholarship.
Yeah.
So I have $500,
Yeah.
here you go,
Yeah.
the following year I have no money.
Yeah.
So that's typically what will
Right,
happen,
right. I'm thinking big.
but yes.
So if, so another option for me is to say, I don't wanna have to worry about it, I don't want my family to have to worry about this when I die, you know. So I'm just gonna give it to the school and say, here, you manage the $20,000, this is how I want this is what I want the scholarship for. And then, so the school manages the investment and every year the dividends from that $20,000 is the scholarship for the, okay. And so then if you can go to the next category, which is the one so what, the city manages money in some cases in Bartholomew and another, what's the difference between those two? Or
That's
it's
the same,
It's the same thing. Okay, so if I give it to the school, then the
We-
school gives it to the city.
Yes,
And, that didn't used to be the case, but it is now.
yes.
Okay, and so the business office doesn't have to deal with the privately managed investments, or do they? They don't at all, because that's just what guidance said. But the business office does have to deal with all of the ones,
That
Where
we're
is it?
managing the funds, so, right, so it's
Yeah.
still communicating with the awarder to make sure that they want to give a scholarship that particular year. We need to cross over to make sure that's still happening.
so if it's, I gave the 20,000, I don't just,
And I think that's the conversation that has to happen.
okay.
And then it's a matter of working through the city, because what's the lead time now? So we have to confirm that we're gonna give the scholarship.
So we still have to go through the warrant process when we request a check from Bartholomew.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
we try to have, as it gets closer to the awards night,
Yeah.
if we have somebody reach out, we try to have them write the check out to the student, because we certainly don't want to accept a check written out to the school.
Someone reach out in which case, in which scenario?
We've had individuals reach out last minute, and of course, you know, we work with them to make sure that they can donate, right, to the student, for awards.
Right.
So we try to get them to write this check directly to the student,
Right.
instead of to the school,
Right.
because we need to make sure that that check clears.
But going back to I've got the $20,000 and I give it to the school to manage the money, and that you give it to the city,
Correct.
who manages it through Bartholomew.
Correct.
And then what is I think you were asking, what is the lead time for that? So then you say, we've got to keep track of all of these essentially scholarship accounts, is that what they would be considered? You've got to keep track of all the scholarships accounts, and then those all have to go through the warrant process.
Correct.
Individually
Through
or
guidance, so that's still with guidance, so guidance is the one, Max has this wonderful list of all of the scholarships. So we know which ones are funded every year based on the criteria, so again, this is.
Funded through the Bartholomew investments?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
So the trustees, actually, you vote,
Yeah.
Mr. Rapaggio goes through the list, I give him the balances. He goes through the list just, for the 9,000 that are awarded from the trustees
Yeah.
through those scholarship accounts.
Right. Okay, that's what I was mostly wondering. And I was, so it's managed in two parts of the school, it sounds like, or the district, right? So both in the business office and in the guidance office.
Correct. Yep. Just making sure that we're just all on the same page and working together.
Right.
Yeah, and I think, thank you to Crystal for highlighting, we have a lot of these funds that we've had for eons.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of the trustees and Mr. Rapaggio identifying which ones we're gonna issue this particular year, maybe not next year, maybe cycle that goes.
If I give the $20,000 to the school, is it considered a trustee account?
So it goes into the scholarship, no, so it just goes in, so we have the trust funds
Yep.
that are the trustees' funds, and then we have the scholarships. So it would go into the scholarship line.
Where does the funding for the trustees fund comes from?
There's a few different funds. Some of them, one of them is the land account. There was sale of a building, so that fund is part of the trustee funds. The trustee line, unfortunately, that was there when I came. I don't know where that funding came from, unfortunately, but
Thank you. Thank you.
Under the professional culture, I just want to highlight this past Friday, the Superintendent's Roundtable Luncheon. We had a chance to thank our executive assistants. And I think for professional culture, I'm not gonna speak for Caitlin, but it really is a great opportunity for somebody in Caitlin's role to put names to faces, because she's beginning to reach out to a lot of superintendent offices to deal with tuition forms and whatnot. And so to see those individuals in person, I think will be a great opportunity for Caitlin to say, hey, I'm talking to you on the phone, I know who you are, okay? We're lucky enough to sit with Dr. Bonner in Northampton, so I know Caitlin met Michelle, so some great connections were made that afternoon. And then, again, Dr. Spencer Robinson, I already mentioned the policy subcommittee meeting, and then last week we had our PLC, the early dismissal, so our teachers worked on the PLCs. So we have two donations. The first one we're sort of in process, but I wanted to add it because of the conversation around the companion animal program. And again, we're a little short in funds for the animals in the feed. So Tracy Polacki came forward, and she wants to donate 300 bales of hay to Animal Science, which is a great opportunity. We don't necessarily need 300 bales of hay. We have a lot of hay ourselves, probably in a surplus, honestly. So that'll be a conversation for another day. But in some follow-up conversation with Tracy, she actually agreed for us to take the bales of hay, but then go to the auction and sell that hay. And then the proceeds of that sale, we can bring it back to help fund the companion animal program. So we're thinking about maybe $1 or $2 per bale of hay. So we're looking at some money that we can put towards what we need to do with companion animals. So it's a great opportunity. What's that?
That's some big things.
Yes.
Who is Tracy?
She lives in Northampton.
Is that the right last name?
Definitely that.
I believe it is. The call came to the facilities office.
Okay, because I'm thinking maybe it's Tracy Polachek. I'm just,
Maybe. I don't know.
I was just curious.
I spoke with her about that.
The second donation came to cabin making through George Estes. He donated 339 board feet of various kiln-dried hardwoods. It's valued at about $2,600, and all of that will be used by the students for the event. So another great opportunity to thank George for that. Looking ahead, besides the typical ongoing meetings that we have, this Thursday, I want to thank Mr. Brown and Mr. Bianca for overseeing. We're going to have a campus-wide ALICE training. ALICE is a reminder, and it's an acronym, but it stands for our active shooter training, basically on campus. We have some type of threat on campus, how do we respond? So all staff and all students will be walking through all of that. That same day, we go from an ALICE training, which is sort of a very heavy experience, and then we're going to be able to celebrate our Students of the Month here in the restaurant. So that's all happening on Thursday. On Friday, as Don mentioned, we have Spirit Week, so it's the annual dodgeball tournament happening Friday afternoon, and then we go home for the December break, which is basically a week and a half. I do want to highlight for the board, there are some days that the campus itself will be closed, and that's going to be Monday the 23rd, and then the 24th and 25th. And then the following week, December 31st, which is New Year's Eve, is a half day. So there's potentially staff on campus in the morning, but then in the afternoon we're shut down. And then New Year's Day, we are closed. So basically during that December break, that Thursday and Friday, there potentially will be people on campus. And then the following Monday, and then half day on Tuesday. Okay. We already talked about the City Council Capital Improvement presentation after break. The next Superintendent's Roundtable Luncheon will be the MAAC, that's the Superintendent's Association. Their legal counsel will be providing some updates. The middle of January, we have our sort of quarterly liaison meeting with the Department of Ed liaison that we have. On the 14th, we have a city department head meeting. The CTE advisory meeting meets in January. We have a long weekend. Monday, January 20th is a holiday, it's Martin Luther King Day. And then the following night we'll be back, hopefully back in the library for the next Board of Trustees meeting. With that, I'll turn it back to the chair.
Okay. I'd like to go into new business. discussion? May I have a motion and a second to approve the overnight field trip to Charlton, Mass. for the FFA Winter Leadership Conference, January 10th and 11th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion and a second to approve the overnight field trip to Framingham, Mass. for the FFA State Convention Conference, April 2nd through the 4th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion and a second to approve the reimbursable grant, $2,901.20, Mass Cultural Council grant for the Viking Moonstone, which is the magazine.
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I do have a question. Reimbursable grant mean we need to spend the money first and then we get
Right.
reimbursed, right?
Right.
Thank you.
May I have a motion and a second to amend the ADF wellness policy.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Can we have Ms. Harden walk us through it?
So the changes are in, page 2. We're, halfway down, we see school nutrition. The last bullet, under school nutrition, it says ensure that half.
Great, hang on. So,
Before you get into that, what does ADF stand for?
That's just the
It's just a
coding.
policy.
The policy number that's assigned to it.
Okay.
Did you say nutrition, education, and promotion?
Correct.
Yep, okay. Second, what bullet you said?
The last bullet where it says starts with ensure,
The last one?
right here, page 3.
Oh, sorry, we're on
No, I'm sorry.
a different page.
Page
Oh, okay, I see
3.
it, got it. Yep, ensure that
Ensure
all of the served grades.
It's been changed to all, not half.
Okay. And
And then on page 4,
our staff are good with that? Using all whole grains?
they have to, yes.
And they make them delicious, like all their other
Yes, they
foods?
do.
We put sugar all over it.
The food is packed. Okay, so then we're on the.
Then under free and reduced meals, we're eliminating that existing paragraph and we've added the following 2 paragraphs. And again, consistent with MASC policy.
So instead of eliminating social stigma attached to free and reduced lunch, which is definitely a thing. Providing students with healthy and nutritious meals so they can focus on schoolwork. Community eligibility program, free breakfast with no cost to all and all students. So stigma gone because everybody's eligible. Fantastic. Thank you.
How is this funded?
The state rep. Well, CEP is more federal, so it's eliminating some of the state funding and it's directing of that.
So is this in action now?
Yes.
This is a result of the administrative audit.
And is it being taken advantage of?
CEP? The free lunch? Yes, yes. It was interesting because the reviewer, the cafeteria staff have to make sure the students take all of the food groups. And if they don't, we can't count that as a free meal. So she was very impressed with our staff, reminding the students, you have to take, please take that fruit. And then if you don't want to eat it, you can put it on the share table. So get students.
So you're not just
Correct.
wasting it?
Correct. Otherwise, the students will have to pay for the lunch.
The share table is right outside the line, is basically a bin, you can put items in that you don't want, and then anybody can go up there and take one question.
So she was very impressed with our staff, and I'll be happy when we receive the report to share it.
Thank
I
you.
think to Mr. Quadra's question, about 75 to 85% of kids get lunch.
We say get lunch, so,
They take advantage of the free lunch at lunchtime.
and there are a portion of the community paying for lunch still?
No,
Everybody gets free lunch.
Yeah, okay.
they may bring their own meal, they may,
Okay.
but it's about 75 to 85% on a day. They're doing about 450 to 480 meals. On a high day, they'll do 490. So if we're at 583, that's a pretty high number. Plus free
The
breakfast.
food is really good.
We do still provide a la carte.
Yes, and that has to be paid.
For sales.
Okay, the next item, motion is second to approve the following surplus for resale from electrical, outdated textbooks from physical education, lake extension, and lake curl machine.
Yeah, we didn't go.
Oh, okay. So, excuse me, can I have a motion and a second for the ADL?
We did that.
Yeah.
I think it's on the
So we just, okay, so any further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, appreciate that. May I have a motion and a second to approve the following surplus, as I said, for resale from electrical, outdated textbooks, from physical education, lake extension, and lake curl machine.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a second for discussion, possible action / vote Board of Trustees representation in negotiation with Unity contract payments.
I recommend, I appreciate the board voting last month to approve opening up the contract for negotiations. My team met with our legal counsel earlier this week. They're going to be working with the MTA to look at some possible dates, probably later in January. And just to keep the ball rolling in the right direction, I just want to make sure that the board has identified who they want to represent the board at the negotiating table. So we can be all on the same page, and I'd highly encourage whoever that individual or people are, that they join us at the table, partake in the conversation.
I was participating last time and I would like to again.
So do we need to make a motion to recommend the two names?
Make a motion to recommend two names for the record. Chairperson and Julie with the two contacts. Okay.
Is there a second to that motion?
I second it.
I second it, I shall pass.
So, any further discussion if done? All in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion and a second to approve to enter negotiation with the superintendent's contract.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion?
When will we schedule
Yeah, and how is this going to be handled?
an executive session with us typically?
Well, we just look at it open and then we have a meeting, so we have to pick dates.
Right, so in the past, and my recommendation is past practice, and the board can do as it feels fit, is that typically the chair would meet with me, discuss recommendations in both directions, typically come to some level of TA, but as I already mentioned, my recommendation would be at the January meeting, go into executive session for the formal negotiations, and go from there.
Where are we at? Have we moved?
Yeah, we have one.
And we second, right?
Further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye. So right now, currently, we'll go and do executive session after the January meeting.
So our future business, January 21st, is a regular board of trustees meeting back to the library. January 22nd, the general advisory committee meeting at 7 a.m. in this restaurant. February 11th, 2025, our regular board of trustees meeting in the library. And motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
I'll move. Second.
Yeah.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.